Hello, my name is Matthias. Welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for GW25, where I'm going to try to select what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next 4 to 5 game weeks and beyond, but especially for these next few game weeks where we have double game week 25, blank game week 26, and blank game week 29 that we have to keep in mind. And for this weekly wildcard drafts, I have selected a tactic where we do a free hit in Game Week 29, so we can maximize the profits in Game Week 25 and still have a viable team for Game Week 26 and for Game Week 29 with the free hit. Game Week 34 is still pretty far away, so I think if you're wildcarding at this point, you're going to have more than enough time to maneuver those game weeks. There are some positives to saving your free hit for Game Week 34, especially because you can more sort of try to maneuver your team to be as good as it can be for Game Week 37 and Game Week 36 as well, which might be a small double game week with Chelsea and Spurs having a double game week fixture there as well. So I do see the upside to doing the free hit in Game Week 34, but I also think you have more than enough time to maneuver that quite easily if you just plan out your transfers properly. So yeah, for this weekly wildcard draft, Game Week 29 is going to be a free hit, and that's why we won't have as many Brentford, Aston Villa, and those types of players that play in 29. Spurs, for example, don't really need them because they blank in 26 and then they play in 29. So yeah, this is going to be more of a team that is sort of more targeted to 25 and 26 and beyond that as well with some of the cheaper options. But let's move on to the number one pick, who is the player that I think is the most essential player to have currently in Fantasy Premier League. And to no one's surprise, that is Erling Braut Haaland, and most of us who are not on a wildcard this week are going to triple captain Haaland. But if you are on a wildcard this week, you can't use two chips at the same time. So before you activate the wildcard, if you haven't already, just make sure that you have a different possibility when it comes to triple captaincy that you kind of like, because most people are going to triple captain Haaland, and that's going to be quite a big boost when it comes to points. But at the same time, if you captain Haaland, you're still just going to miss out on, like, it's basically as if you had not captained Haaland and everyone else had captained him at that point. So yeah, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but just keep that in mind. If you really want to use the triple captaincy chip on Haaland, you can't use it in conjunction with the wildcard. But in this week's wildcard drafts, we would still have Haaland number one, even though we can't triple captain him. He would still be the main captain, obviously, for this game week in double game week 25. And you also have a game week 26 fixture, and then you also have the Man United fixture at home in game week 27 as well, which I think is a really good fixture for Haaland and Man City in general. So Haaland, pretty easy choice. He scored twice last game week, 13 points times 2 for most of us that captained him, 26 points as the captain. The auto captain Haaland is back, and the number one pick in the weekly wildcard draft, Haaland, is also back, and that's probably not going to change in the near future at least, but maybe when we come closer to game week 29 and 28, when the wildcard draft is going to look quite a bit different, because at that point we'll be more focused on game week 29 without a free hit, I guess, once we clear game week 25 and game week 26. But yeah, moving on to number 2, we have again Phil Foden. He scored now again in the Champions League, still looking really lethal for City, still playing basically all the minutes that he can for Man City as well. He has been doing that all season, and this has sort of been like his breakout here. We know Foden has always been a great player, a terrific world-class player, in fact. But this season, he has taken that big step up to be like one of the main guys for Man City who's going to play every single game. And that's why he's such an important pick to have, especially when we take into account the fact that City have the double game week 25 and not blanking in game week 26 as well. So yeah, Foden and Haaland, I think, are pretty much mainstays in pretty much every team. So yeah, don't really have to talk too much about that. I still think Foden is fantastic, and he's also a pretty good long-term hold because he's still pretty cheap. He's going to be a bit more expensive next season, so you might as well just take advantage of him for a cheaper price as long as you can for this season at least. Number 3, we have Bukayo Saka, and honestly, it was quite a mistake to not have him in the weekly wildcard draft last time around, because you can see his name is marked with green, which means he's a new player, that he wasn't part of the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 24. And after doing the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 24, I was looking at my own team where I have Saka, and I was thinking, should I replace Saka? And the answer was just completely just no every time. I had really no thoughts about selling Saka, pretty much no thoughts about selling Saka in general. For that game week and beyond as well, because Arsenal are a really good team, as they showed against West Ham. Saka with a big 15-point haul against West Ham. even though it was away as well, which is usually where Saka is struggling quite a bit. But Arsenal are just looking absolutely fantastic currently. They also have Burnley and Sheffield United in the next 3 game weeks, and they also have the home game against Newcastle within those 3 game weeks as well. And Newcastle have been just absolutely terrible defensively. So, and if you have the Brentford game in game week 28 as well for Arsenal, I think the next 4 game weeks is pretty much ideal, apart from the fact that they don't have a double game week in any of them. But the fixtures straight up should mean a lot of points for Saka. So Saka is still a really important player to have, but currently you're probably more interested in bringing in double game week players and players beyond that as well that might even play in 29. But I think Saka is absolutely fantastic. Even if you need players for 29, I think Saka is someone that is worth having before that, at least for the next 4 game weeks. So yeah, Saka makes it in as number 3. He honestly should have been in the squad this past game week because he has really turned it up again and been really good lately. The same goes for Arsenal, who are looking way better the last few game weeks. And yeah, we're going to back Arsenal pretty heavy with this team as well. So Saka comes in at number 3, and he's not the last Arsenal player either. Number 4, we have Diogo Jota. We obviously have to take advantage of the double game week for Liverpool. We can't take advantage of it too much because they do blank in the following game week. Then they have that pretty enticing fixture against Nottingham Forest, where most people will not have a single Liverpool asset, which is going to be pretty interesting. Because that might be like a 5-0 sort of win for Liverpool as well, where no one will have any Arsenal players, which I think is pretty interesting. But Jota, in his own right for the next 2 fixtures, Brentford away and Luton at home, really good fixtures. Even if Salah is back, I think Jota is still going to play mostly. I think he is preferred over Luis Diaz currently at the moment, and he's probably going to play alongside Darwin and Salah, even if Salah is back. And Salah is actually in consideration for this weekly Wildcard draft as well. I think if we get some really strong indications that Salah is going to be able to start the first game of the double game week, I think he would be a really interesting differential captain as well. But obviously, Liverpool also have the cup final straight after the double game week finishes as well, so they have more games to keep in mind. And Salah is just back from an injury, so it's not like set in stone the fact that Salah is going to be pretty good, even if he's confirmed to be fit for the first match of the game week. But we don't even have that news yet. We just don't know. We just know that he is back in training for Liverpool, and that's it basically. So yeah, let's wait and see with Salah. But for now, I think Diogo Jota is a fantastic pick for this 1 game week before you sell him in game week 26 for someone who's going to be really good for next game week, who has actually dropped out of this team. But we'll talk about him at the end of the video. Next up, we have number 5, and that's going to be Gabriel Magalhaes in defense. And I stupidly benched him this past game week. He played against West Ham, which is my favorite team, and it sort of hurt me twice as much, the fact that Gabriel scored in that massive slaughter of the game for Arsenal. 2 set-piece goals against West Ham. That tells you something about the set-piece prowess of Arsenal, especially now that Declan Rice is taking the set-pieces. Gabriel has been scoring left, right, and center. He got 2 goals in that game week, a couple game weeks back. Even though one of them was credited as an assist in FPL, it was changed to a goal later on. So he has basically 3 goals in a pretty short time span. And we know that from Gabriel. He has amazing goal threat offensively on set pieces, and defensively Arsenal have been incredibly solid this whole season. Again, a lot of that credit goes to Declan Rice, who's just absolutely fantastic in both, or in all ways basically for Arsenal. So he really helps Gabriel a lot, and for these next few fixtures with really easy fixtures for Arsenal, I think Gabriel also makes a lot of sense to have in your team. And I think he's currently the best defender to have in the game, even though he doesn't have a single double game week for the next few fixtures at least. So yeah, Gabriel makes it as number 5. Number 6, we have Cole Palmer, and again, another player who just keeps performing. You can't really leave Palmer out of your team. I think he's just too valuable. Those games against Brentford and Newcastle, he will be really good in Game Week 27 and Game Week 28. Yes, he has Man City away and then he blanks, but you can actually survive Game Week 26. At least with this team, you'll have enough players to survive Game Week 26 without a single blanking player in your starting 11. And obviously, you can easily just bench Palmer when you have so many double game week players and other good players like the Arsenal players, for example, playing against Burnley in Game Week 25. So I think Palmer is still a fantastic pick. He's great value. You're going to want to bring him back again if you do sell him, and that's going to waste a transfer that we're going to use in the future. And especially seeing as we are doing a wildcard with this wildcard draft, because that makes sense. It's a wildcard draft, so you're using a wildcard. you don't have that opportunity to use a wildcard to bring Palmer back in, which would be the case for most people that are selling Palmer currently, because those who are selling Palmer now are going to wildcard him back in for game week 30 or game week 31 whenever they need him back, basically. But if you wildcard now, you won't have that luxury, and you might as well keep him because he's going to be really good in those fixtures in game week 27 and game week 28 as well. So seeing as we're also free hitting in game week 29, that blank that he has there most likely is not going to affect us that much either. So yeah, Palmer is just a really good player to have for the entirety of the season, basically, because he should be around like 8 million or 8.5 or possibly even higher. Maybe he goes even higher than that next season. We'll see. But yeah, currently he's still only like 5.8, 5.9, and he's just an absolutely fantastic pick who is pretty much just a game breaker this season. And yeah, he's just been absolutely fantastic. So he comes in at number 6. Number 7, we have Kevin De Bruyne, who is obviously another City player with those really good fixtures. I think a triple up for City in the attack makes a lot of sense. De Bruyne, again, in the Champions League now against Copenhagen, showed why he's just such a good asset. He just keeps delivering every single game week after he has returned. He has gotten a point return in every single game. And we can expect that in both the Chelsea game and the Brentford game in the double game week. And then also in game week 26, where they also have a fixture. When it comes to the defenders for Man City, really tough to choose and know who's going to play all 3 games that we need them for, the double game week in 25 and then the game week 26 fixture. So De Bruyne, Foden, Haaland seems like the most secure triple up for Man City, and that's why De Bruyne comes in at number 7. There are some potential, you could go with a defender, maybe someone like Nathan Ake if you trust him, maybe someone like John Stones if you think he can be healthy. Finally, maybe Ruben Diaz if you like the security of starts potentially from him. There are rumors that now that Guardiola is injured, he wasn't involved in the Champions League match either, so that might be boding well for Ake's chances to play, because he's been playing just every single minute basically the last like 10 game weeks or so. So I do think Ake is someone that has a lot of merit in your potential team, but I think the triple up with Foden, De Bruyne, and Haaland just has way too much upside to not go without it. So De Bruyne completes the midfield. As you can see, 5 really strong midfielders this game week. 5 midfielders that I really, really like for both now and for the future of the game as well. So yeah, those guys are really, really good, and De Bruyne comes in at number 7. Number 8, we have Ollie Watkins. Yes, he did blank last game week, but he did have 2 really good chances to score and had 1 really good chance to assist McGinn as well. So I think Watkins still looks absolutely fantastic, and I wouldn't really go without him either, even though he doesn't have a double game week fixture in the next few fixtures. But yeah, he actually plays in game 29 if you need to, or if you don't have a free hit, for example, then your team would look a bit different. So maybe I should have had like an alternate free hit type of squad, or a free hitless type of squad where you don't have the free hit in game 29. But either way, Watkins, whether you need him for 29 or if you don't need him for 29, he's just an absolutely fantastic player, playing as Fulham, Nottingham Forest, Luton and Spurs, 4 games where you can easily score in all of them. So I think similarly to Saka, he's just too dangerous to go without, basically, because he's going to turn it on at some point, because we know Aston Villa are really good and Watkins is really good. Maybe the fixture congestion is making it a bit tougher for them. They're going to have a lot of fixtures. They seem a bit tired lately. Boubacar Kamara is now out for Aston Villa as well, which is going to be a significant blow for them in terms of their Champions League hopes, at least this season. But I still think Watkins is producing a lot of good chances. His movement in the box has been really encouraging and really great the last few game weeks as well. It's just that final finish that is lacking a little bit in this past game at least. But we just saw him have a monster haul with 18 points against Sheffield United not too long ago, and we can expect one of those types of games in the next 3 fixtures, I would assume as well. So Watkins is the one that you should have. It's one that you could potentially sell as well in game week 20. Or you probably will sell in game week 27 or game week 28 to bring in Solanke, who doesn't have as good fixtures in the immediate future, but is going to have a really good fixture or like a fantastic double game week fixture in game week 29 at home to Luton and Sheffield United. But for now, Watkins is in the squad because yeah, I really like him. And the final striker will kind of surprise you, but we'll get to that a bit later in the video, because we have some defenders that we like, and one of them is Alfie Doughty, and I like them enough to bring him in for a hit this past game week and benching Gabriel and his 12-pointer against West Ham, like I already mentioned in this video. That was a mistake for me because Doughty did blank, but he also had 9 key passes, which just proves how important he is to Luton and what they do offensively, and proves why he is the one that gets a lot of assists and potentially goals as well for Luton. And they might also get a cheeky clean sheet here or there as well. They have a decent, not really a decent double game week, but they do have a double game week at least against Man United at home and Liverpool away. Could be able to get some points from either of those games. Even if it just plays both games, that will be 4 points, which is enough, or comparatively the same as a player getting an assist and a yellow card and playing 90 minutes. So that's still pretty good value for Doughty, who I think could potentially outscore his projected points as well, with the assist threat and the goal threat and the potential for clean sheets as well on top of that. So Doughty makes it in. He also has a double game week in game week 28, just like Solanke and all the Bournemouth and Luton players. So yeah, Doughty just makes a lot of sense to have for the future as well in this team. Number 10, we have another player from Luton actually, and that is Adebayo. I know that's kind of from left field. A lot of people would go with Solanke or would go with Ivan Toney, for example, as his final striker spot, or even potentially Darwin as well. But I think you sort of have to limit your blank game week 26 players in this team. And that's why we go for, Adebayo, you do have the blank game in 26, but you also have more money to spend on someone like De Bruyne, for example, which is going to be really helpful for this team. So that's basically why Adebayo is here. He's pretty cheap. You can bench him whenever he doesn't have a double game week. And benching dilemmas has been a big issue the last few game weeks in FPL, especially for me. I've benched a 16-pointer from Garnacho, benched a 12-pointer from Gabriel. I benched Solanke this past game week, even though he got an assist and had a decent game at least on paper. So having a player that you can bench in most game weeks and then play him in those double game weeks just seems like a pretty good situation for me. Adebayo has been really good lately as well. He's been scoring goals for Luton, who have been producing a lot of chances, and Adebayo is a pretty good player for them in general, and especially if Carlton Morris is off the pitch as well, he's most likely going to be on penalties as well, Adebayo, so I really like that as well. But he's just a really cheap enabler who is someone that you could easily bench in most game weeks and play in those double game weeks. That is like the main selling point of Adebayo and why he's in the squad. So he's going to be pretty important for the future of this team as well. Considering we're using the wildcard, he's someone that can survive in the team for a long time and just be there as the final third striker or eighth attacker if you want, who can be mostly on the bench for you in most game weeks, but also provide a lot of value in other game weeks. So that's Adebayo at number 10, and that means we have finished off with all of our attacking talents. Adebayo is the 8th man in attack, and we have 2 goalkeepers and 3 defenders left to go. And the first player we're going to talk about is Jared Branthwaite. And yes, he does not have a double game week, kind of like Arsenal players. Doesn't have a double game week in the near future at least. He does have a double game week in 34, however, most likely. And he has a really good fixture in game week 37 as well. And those are the 2 game weeks where having good players is kind of important, especially seeing as we are using our free hit in game week 29. We're going to need some good players for game week 34 as well. Some good double game week players. Branthwaite is most likely going to have a pretty good double game week there, and he also has a pretty easy home game in game week 37 as well, where we potentially will use our bench boost and would potentially have Branthwaite as one of those players that we will bench boost with. So yeah, Branthwaite has just been absolutely fantastic this season as a player. In FPL, he's also been really solid, gotten a lot of points lately, especially scoring that goal against Spurs and keeping clean sheets before that as well. Everton are a really good defensive side, and Branthwaite is at the heart of it as well and has some goal threat as well. So yeah, I really like Branthwaite as just a really nice cheap option again that you can have for a long time, kind of like Adebayo. We're kind of at that point in the weekly wildcard draft now where we're picking the remnants of the squad that is going to last for a long while and just be there to fill in the gaps when needed. And Branthwaite is one of those players who can fill in the gaps whenever, really, regardless of the opposition, because he showed against Spurs as well that he can get points in tough matches. So yeah, Branthwaite makes it in as the number 11 pick. Number 12, we have a goalkeeper, and it's actually a new goalkeeper. I've stuck with the Areola-Dubravka combo for way too long because they are playing for the 2 worst defenses in the league currently, in Newcastle and Arsenal. So finally, I decided to switch it up, especially seeing as we have some double game week fixtures now. And Neto is one of those players who has a double game week fixture in game week 28, where they play Sheffield United at home and then Luton at home as well in that 1 game week. So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting game week for Neto to be in. It's also someone that is pretty nicely rotating goalkeeper with the second goalkeeper that I have that we'll get to eventually. Neto in his own right and Bournemouth have been pretty good defensively this season as well. So in terms of the underlying numbers at least. So I do have some pretty high hopes for him, especially in that major double game week that's coming up against Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. So I think that's an interesting game week for for Bournemouth and their goalkeeper Neto from Brazil. Next up, we have number 13th pick, and I did say that I do like the rotation between the goalkeepers, and we have David Raya for Arsenal. Also like Arsenal in general, I am a bit like uneasy about having a goalkeeper from Arsenal. I kind of like to have as many outfield players on the big four, especially, or like the big six sides in general. I don't really like having a big six goalkeeper, but I think Raya is someone that makes a lot of sense to have long term and have for those double game weeks especially, and also in the upcoming few game weeks as well when Neto doesn't have the best fixtures. Raya can come in and play against Burnley and Newcastle, which is going to be decent fixtures at least for Raya, who is the standout number one goalkeeper option for Arsenal, even though Ramsdale is still on the bench there. So that is my keeping pair here, Neto and Raya. That's going to cost you quite a bit more than Dubravka and Areola, but hopefully it's going to get you a lot more points than Dubravka and Areola have been getting the last few game weeks as well, because that has been pretty bleak in general. So I quite like this goalkeeper combination. They also rotate quite nicely for the entirety of the season, basically, and we get some pretty nice double game weeks out of it as well. Number 14, we have Senesi from Bournemouth. Another Bournemouth player that we need for that double game week in game week 28. Sheffield United at home and Luton at home. Senesi has also been really good at scoring goals this season. Scored in this past game week as well. A really nicely taken goal from a centre back. Pretty impressive technique there to get the ball into his stride and then shooting it straight into the net from Senesi. So he can score goals, he can keep clean sheets, and he's just a banging good option for double game week in game week 28, and that's why he's made the squad as the number 14th pick. And then number 15, the final guy is going to be Sergio Reguilon for Brentford. I'm a bit uneasy about picking him. I don't really like the Brentford fixtures in general the next few game weeks. That's also why I don't have Tony in this team. Tony is kind of tempting though still. But I opted for the cheaper Adebayo to make room for guys like De Bruyne in this team. So if you do have the money for someone like Tony, then maybe you should prefer him over Adebayo. But at the same time, I quite like Adebayo from the fact that he is pretty easy to bench as well. But Reguilon is another one of those players who is pretty easy to bench, and he's also someone with a pretty good fixture in game week 29. Which is probably not going to be that effective for this team because we're looking to free hit in game week 29 with this team. But Reguilon can keep his place there, and he's most likely going to go up in price the next few game weeks as well, because a lot of people will target him for that game week 29 fixture as well. So yeah, Reguilon is a decent final piece who takes corners as well for Brentford, can get some assist points from that as well, on top of potentially getting some clean sheet points, kind of like he did this past game week against Wolverhampton away from home. So that was a pretty impressive result. As you can see, we have 6 new players coming in: Neto, Raya, Senesi, Reguilon, Saka, and Adebayo, and that means 6 players have dropped out since last time, and we're going to talk a little bit about them before we wrap up this video. Firstly, we have Darwin Núñez, who I have dropped just because we don't really have enough transfers to have that many Liverpool players. I do prefer for future flexibility to have more Luton players who both have a double game week in game week 28 upcoming, and also are a bit cheaper than the Liverpool guys. So Doughty and Adebayo makes it in, Darwin does not make it in, and Van Dijk doesn't make it in either from last time, but that's basically giving us enough money to have a better squad in general for this team. Allows us to bring in Saka as well, which we didn't have last game week, so that's the thinking for those game weeks. Hwang Hee-chan is also going to be dropping out. He didn't really play much in the first game back from Asian Cup this past time around. He's struggling with a little bit of an issue still, but I do think he's going to be back healthy and nice for game 26 when we most likely bring him into our team regardless for Diogo Jota. But for now, Jota is just a lot more value because he has that double game week fixture, or those double game week fixtures. So yeah, Hwang Hee-chan has to be left out of the team again, but he's going to be back into the team again, both the Wildcard draft and in most of our teams, I think, or I think you should at least go with Hwang Hee-chan for game 26 and beyond, because yeah, he's just a really, really good player, but he drops out just because of the double game week that he doesn't participate in, pretty much. Then we have the goalkeepers. I'm just going to talk about them at the same time. I did mention them earlier, Dubravka and Areola. They just play for the the 2 worst defenses in the league currently. So both Dubravka and Areola are left out, but I do have some consideration for both, especially Areola if you are someone that is trying to not free hit in Game Week 29. The Areola is someone that plays in Game Week 29, even though he plays against Aston Villa. That's going to be a tough fixture, but he plays at least, and he's the one that is a decent price. Dubravka as well, maybe still there is some hope that Newcastle will turn it around and sort of look more like the defense that they had last season. On paper, it shouldn't really be that difficult, but for some reason, they just can't defend properly this season. So yeah, maybe that is just inevitably not going to happen. Dubravka is left out of the team as well. Van Heck is also left out. His good fixtures are sort of running out a little bit. Around game week 30, the Brighton fixtures are going to dry up a little bit, and they're not going to have that many double game weeks either for the rest of the season. They pretty much just play every game week straight up. Not really many blanks, not really many doubles. But Van Heck drops out because I do have some other players that I do want to prefer to have at this point of the season, where we have very few game weeks before the double game week for Bournemouth and Luton coming up in game week 28. Van Dijk as well dropped out, like I mentioned, to make room for the likes of Saka and just being able to keep De Bruyne and have a pretty expensive team overall. So he's also another sacrifice that had to be made because he is going to be a pretty good player for this double game week at least. But we do have to think about game week 26 as well and beyond that as well. So that's why Van Dijk has dropped out of the team as well. And that's pretty much it for the weekly Wildcard draft. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you also check out the game week planning video that I put out yesterday, where I went through 4 teams from the comment section on this YouTube channel. People commented with their team ID, and I went through their teams and sort of set out the best plan to navigate the 3 game weeks that we are looking ahead for in game week 20, double game 25, blank game week 26, and blank game week 29. So please check out that video as well if you haven't already. And also subscribe if you haven't already. That would be really nice. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and just start to grow this channel properly. But yeah, we'll see about that eventually. But without further ado, I guess, now that we're finished with the video, I'm going to borrow that phrase from FPL Raptor and say thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.